Little Omega's Secret Desire. Chapter 1, The Shadowed Court. The Moonstone Palace was quieter than usual that night. Even the guards, wolves bred for silence, shifted uneasily in their armor. The air was thick with something primal. The king's moods carried through the walls like weather, and tonight, the storm had teeth. Ariel kept her head low as she passed through the servants' hall, arms full of fresh linens. She was small, Omega-born, unnoticed by most, and she preferred it that way. Invisibility was safety here. Alphas were dangerous, their eyes sharper than blades, their appetites worse. But something had changed in the palace these last moons. The air felt charged, humming with secrets. The Alpha King's temper was shorter, his hunts, bloodier. And though Ariel had never seen him up close, she'd felt his presence like a hand around her throat, cold, commanding, inescapable. Her friend Lori had whispered warnings over laundry steam. He's restless again. The council said the omens are turning against him. Ariel hadn't replied. She didn't need omens to tell her the kingdom was trembling. She could feel it in the marrow of her bones. When she reached the linen chamber, she found Snake lounging against the doorway, his smile sharp and lazy. He wasn't a true wolf, half-blooded mercenary, hired muscle, and dangerous in ways that didn't rely on claws. Working late again, little Omega, he drawled, his gaze flicking over her. Careful. The king's out tonight. Bad night to be caught where you don't belong. Ariel pushed past him. I always belong where the work is. He chuckled, low and knowing. Then maybe you should stop working so close to his chambers. She froze. I don't. Don't lie, sweetheart. You've been seen. Before she could respond, the air changed. The torches guttered. A deep voice echoed from the hall behind them, rich, cold, unmistakable. Seen by whom? Snake straightened instantly. Ariel turned slowly, her heart hammering so hard she thought he might hear it. The Alpha King stood in the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, his cloak streaked with rain and blood. His eyes, wolf gold, luminous in the half-light, locked onto hers. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Ariel forgot to breathe. The air between them thickened, heavy with recognition neither of them could explain. Dawson's gaze flicked over her, assessing, curious, and then something else. Hunger. Leave us, he said to Snake, who vanished without a sound. Ariel clutched the linens tighter, throat dry. Your scent, Dawson said quietly, stepping closer, doesn't belong in this hall. Her voice came out a whisper. Then where does it belong, Your Majesty? He smiled, slow, dangerous. That, he said, is what I intend to find out. Chapter 2, The Wolf's Scent. The torches guttered as if afraid of his presence. Dawson's boots echoed across the flagstones, slow, deliberate. Each step sounded like a countdown. Ariel's pulse thrummed in her throat. She couldn't run, not from a creature like him. The Alpha King didn't chase. He hunted with patience. He stopped close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him, could smell the faint trace of iron and forest smoke clinging to his cloak. His eyes, sharp gold flecked with ember, drank her in. Ariel lowered her gaze, fighting the instinct to kneel. Don't make yourself prey. He tilted his head. Look at me. The command rolled through the air, threaded with alpha compulsion. Her body obeyed before her mind could resist. Their eyes met, and the world shifted. The noise of the palace, the patter of rain outside, even the sound of her own heartbeat fell away. There was only him. Do you know what happens, he murmured, to those who trespass into my wing without invitation? Ariel's lips trembled. I was only delivering linens, my lord. He circled her slowly, predator smooth, his voice low enough to be mistaken for thought. That's what they all say. I didn't mean. He stopped behind her. The heat of him soaked through the thin fabric of her servant's tunic. When he spoke again, it brushed the nape of her neck. You smell of fear, and something else. Her knees weakened. "Please," she whispered. Dawson inhaled deeply, his voice soft but cutting. "Desire." She froze. "You're mistaken." He chuckled once, a sound without warmth. "Omega, I could taste it in the air before I walked in." Ariel's face burned. She wanted to deny it, but her scent betrayed her. She could feel it, the pulse of her wolf under her skin, the ancient instinct that recognized the power in his voice, his scent, his dominance. "I am not yours," she said, though the words came out shakier than she intended. His hand lifted, brushing a single stray lock of hair from her neck. "No," he agreed. "But you could be." Her breath hitched. "You have no right." "I have every right in this kingdom," Dawson interrupted softly. "But you're fortunate. I've grown tired of taking what doesn't belong to me." He stepped back. The air cooled instantly. Ariel turned, expecting anger, but found something worse in his eyes, recognition. He studied her, jaw tight. "What's your name?" "Ariel." He repeated it under his breath, as if testing the shape of it. "You'll stay out of this corridor from now on. And if you value your life, you'll keep that scent buried." She swallowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." He turned away, cloak sweeping the floor. For a moment, the storm outside howled, mirroring the sudden wild beat of her heart. When he reached the end of the corridor, he paused. "Ariel." She stiffened. "Yes?" His voice was quieter now, almost unreadable. "Next time, knock before you enter my world." Then he was gone. Ariel stood there long after the sound of his steps faded, clutching the linens like a shield. She'd survived. But something in her had changed. Something she couldn't name yet. And above the palace, the moon, red and swollen, watched. Chapter 3, The Night's Pull. Sleep refused to come. Ariel lay awake in her narrow servant's cot, staring at the cracked ceiling as moonlight cut thin silver lines across the floor. The palace never truly slept. Somewhere above, footsteps echoed in marble halls. Somewhere beyond, wolves howled from the training yards. And beneath it all, she could still feel him, that voice, that gaze, the way his scent had burned itself into her blood. Every instinct screamed that she should run. Omegas weren't meant to attract the attention of kings. They existed to obey, to serve quietly, to fade into the background until no one remembered their names. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw his, gold, wild, impossible to forget. "Damn him," she whispered into the dark. Lori stirred in the cot beside hers. "What?" "Nothing," Ariel said quickly, rolling over. But her friend wasn't so easily fooled. "You're flushed." "What happened?" Ariel hesitated, then whispered, "The Alpha King caught me near his chambers." Lori sat up fast. "You what?" "It wasn't intentional." Lori's eyes went wide. "Gods above, Ariel. That's death. Do you know how many Omegas disappear after drawing his notice?" Her stomach twisted. "I didn't draw it." Lori sighed, pressing a hand to her forehead. "Then pray he forgets you. If he doesn't, the court will tear you apart long before he gets the chance." Ariel turned her face into the pillow. "He won't remember me." But she didn't believe it, not for a moment. By morning, the palace buzzed with whispers. Servants clustered in corners, pretending to polish silver while trading rumors. The Alpha King hadn't slept in his chambers. His bed untouched. His temper, worse than ever. Snake found Ariel again in the laundry hall, his grin too sharp to be friendly. "So the little Omega met the wolf himself, hmm?" She dropped a folded sheet. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" He leaned closer, his voice a purr. "You should be careful, Ariel. He doesn't look twice at Omegas unless he's hungry for something." Her stomach nodded. "He's not hungry for me." Snake's grin widened. "You sure?" A voice from behind cut him off, low, commanding, unmistakable. She's sure. Snake stiffened, color draining from his face. Ariel turned. Dawson stood in the doorway again, dressed in black, no crown, no cloak. Just a man, but one whose presence filled the entire room. Out, he said to Snake. The mercenary bowed and vanished, leaving the air thick and unbreathable. Dawson's gaze locked onto Ariel. You lied. She blinked. About what? Staying away. He took a slow step toward her. I thought we had an understanding. Ariel's voice came out steadier than she felt. You came to me. That made him pause. Something dangerous and alive flickered in his expression. You're right. He closed the distance between them until the scent of his skin, cedar, smoke, and power, filled her lungs. And that's the problem. She should have stepped back. She didn't. His hand lifted, stopping just short of her face, trembling slightly as if he was fighting himself. You should leave this place, Ariel. Her heart hammered. Why? Because if you don't, he whispered, voice rough now, I won't. The space between them burned. Neither moved. Neither breathed. The king of wolves and the invisible little Omega stood on the knife's edge of something dangerous, something both of them already knew they would fall into. And when he turned and left her standing there, the ache he left behind felt worse than any threat. Chapter 4, The King's Summons. By dusk, the palace was all ceremony and silence. Courtiers arrived from the outer territories, their cloaks jeweled, their wolves pacing at their heels. The king had called an emergency council meeting. A thing that hadn't happened since the last uprising. Ariel, hidden in the ranks of servants, moved through the marble corridors with her head down and her heart pounding. Every whisper she caught seemed to circle back to him. The king's scent was strange today, agitated. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. They say an Omega crossed his path, and now the moon itself is restless. She nearly dropped her tray when she heard that. Lori shot her a warning glance from across the hall, silently mouthing breathe. Ariel tried. The throne room's great doors opened. She slipped in at the far edge of the dais, setting wine for the council as quietly as she could. The king sat upon his seat of carved obsidian, one arm braced on the armrest, his expression carved from patience and power. His hair was still damp from a recent wash, his jaw shadowed. But his eyes, they were sharper than ever. He didn't look at her, not directly. But she felt him. Every time she moved, his attention followed like heat through smoke. Counselor Varen spoke about border raids. Someone mentioned rogues near the Riverlands. Dawson gave orders without effort, his tone cool and unyielding. Yet beneath the control, something churned. His voice caught slightly when her tray clinked against the goblet. Just once. But she saw the muscle in his jaw tighten. When the meeting ended, the hall emptied in waves. Ariel fled before the last lord bowed. She made it halfway down the servants' corridor before someone caught her wrist. She spun, breathless, ready to fight, but stopped cold when she saw him. Dawson stood in the shadows of the stairwell, his cloak gone, the moonlight silvering his hair. You were in my hall again, he said quietly. I serve there, she managed. Not to me, you don't. Her throat tightened. If you wish me dismissed, I'll. Dismissed? His voice dropped to a growl. Is that what you think I want? Her pulse leapt. Then what do you want? The silence between them was dangerous, alive. Finally, he said, tonight. After moonrise. The East Tower. Ariel stared. That's forbidden. Then you understand the invitation. Before she could speak, he reached into his coat and pressed something into her hand, a ring, heavy and cold, engraved with the royal crest. Show this to the guards. Say nothing. She looked down at it, the metal gleaming like a captured star. Why me? He hesitated, and for a flicker of a moment, she thought she saw something human in his eyes, something that didn't belong to a king. Because I haven't dreamed in years, he said, voice rough, and last night, I did. Of you. Then he was gone again, swallowed by the dark. Ariel clutched the ring, her breath unsteady. She should throw it away, burn it, forget it ever touched her palm. But even as she thought it, she knew she wouldn't. The moon climbed higher, red against the clouds, and somewhere deep in the palace, a wolf began to howl. Chapter 5, The Tower of Silver Fire. The East Tower had been forbidden to servants for generations. Some said it was cursed. Others claimed it was where the first Alpha King had bound his wolf to the goddess under a blood moon. Either way, no one went there willingly. No one except her. Ariel's hand shook as she pressed the ring into the guard's palm. The man looked at it once, went pale, and stepped aside without a word. The heavy iron door groaned open. The staircase spiraled upward, narrow and steep. Moonlight filtered in through arrow slits, painting ghostly bars across the walls. Her breath fogged the air as she climbed, every step echoing louder than it should have. The scent of the king reached her before his voice did, dark pine, smoke, the faint edge of steel. He stood near the open balcony when she reached the top, the wind tugging at his cloak. The moon hung low behind him, a red coin in a black sky. You came, he said, not turning. You summoned me, she answered, her voice steadier than her heart. He faced her then. The sight of him stole the air from her lungs. He'd shed his formal armor. Bare arms crossed over his chest, the muscles of his shoulders tense beneath a thin black shirt. But it wasn't his body that unstrung her, it was his eyes. They were wolf-bright, burning as though lit from within. I shouldn't have, he said quietly. Every instinct tells me to send you away. Then why didn't you? Because I can't. He took a step forward, slow, deliberate. Ariel's pulse tripped. The tower felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. You have no idea what you've done to me, Dawson murmured. I've buried men for less than a glance. But one look at you and my control fractures. You're the Alpha King, she said, trying to sound brave. You don't lose control. He smiled faintly, a shadow of humor flickering across his face. That's exactly the problem. The wind howled through the tower, lifting her hair around her shoulders. He reached out and caught a single strand between his fingers. Your scent has been in my thoughts for days. I can't sleep. Can't feed. I almost killed a messenger this morning because he wore your perfume by accident. Ariel's breath trembled. You should let me go. I've tried. His voice broke just slightly. But every time I close my eyes, I see the same thing. You, standing in my court, covered in moonlight, looking at me as though you weren't afraid. She swallowed hard. I was terrified. And yet you didn't kneel. Something in his tone changed, less command, more confession. He stepped closer until only a breath separated them. His scent, his heat, his entire presence wrapped around her like a storm waiting to break. Tell me to stop, he said. Ariel shook her head. You wouldn't. You're right, he said, and kissed her. It wasn't soft. It was the kind of kiss that stripped thought away, that demanded everything and left nothing untouched. The air crackled. The wolves within them both stirred, restless, recognizing something older than titles or bloodlines. When they finally broke apart, her lips tingled, her chest heaving. Dawson's eyes had gone completely golden. You shouldn't have come, he whispered. You shouldn't have asked. They stood there, the night spinning around them, knowing that whatever line they'd just crossed couldn't be uncrossed. Below, the palace bells tolled midnight. The Alpha King and the Little Omega had just rewritten the laws of their world. Chapter 6, The Price of Midnight. The kiss should have ended it. Instead, it began something neither could contain. The night burned itself out around them. Ariel didn't remember how long they stood there, only that the wind died, the moon climbed higher, and the world seemed to wait. When she finally stepped back, the king's eyes followed her like a predator's, but his voice was no longer sharp. It was quiet. Dangerous for different reasons. This never happened, he said. Ariel's throat tightened. Lying won't make it less real. He turned away, bracing his hands against the cold stone railing. Reality isn't the same for me as it is for you. Because you're king? He looked over his shoulder. Because I have enemies who'd kill to use you against me. She swallowed hard. And what would you do if they tried? His smile was bleak. Burn the kingdom down. The honesty of it startled her. She'd expected arrogance, not devotion. But before she could answer, a sound split the night, a sharp clatter from the stairwell below. Dawson stiffened. Someone's coming. He moved fast, every trace of tenderness gone. Stay behind me, he ordered, voice low. Ariel's heart hammered. The ring, the cursed, gleaming token of his invitation, was still in her pocket. The door burst open. Snake stepped into the chamber, smirking as always, though his hand rested on the dagger at his hip. Majesty, he said lightly, forgive the intrusion. The council's dogs are sniffing about. Someone saw the little Omega leaving her quarters after curfew. His gaze slid to her. And I thought to myself, surely, she must be visiting someone important. Dawson's growl was low, lethal. Careful, Snake. Oh, I am, Snake said, circling slowly. Careful's the only way to survive you. His eyes glinted with something colder than amusement. You know, the court will love this. The ruthless Alpha King and his servant girl. A forbidden bond under the blood moon. Ariel stepped forward before she could stop herself. You don't know anything. Snake's smile sharpened. I know enough to sell the story. Dawson moved, faster than any man should be able to. One heartbeat, Snake was standing, the next, his back hit the wall, the king's hand clamped around his throat. Say one word of this, Dawson said, voice like iron, and you'll never speak again. Snake choked, still smirking even as his boots scraped for purchase. You'll kill me either way, won't you? Dawson's grip tightened, but Ariel's voice cut through the rage. Don't. He froze. She stepped closer. If you kill him, it only proves the story's true. Slowly, Dawson lowered his hand. Snake crumpled, gasping. Leave, Dawson said. Before I change my mind. Snake staggered toward the stairs, wiping blood from his mouth. It's too late, Majesty, he rasped. Secrets don't stay buried. Not even royal ones. When he was gone, silence closed in again. Ariel turned to Dawson. He'll tell them. I know. His voice was rough, exhausted. And when he does, they'll come for you. For me? He met her eyes. You think they'll blame the king? No. They'll blame the Omega who bewitched him. Ariel's pulse stuttered. Then what will you do? Dawson's expression hardened. The only thing I can. I'll deny everything, and you'll disappear before dawn. She took a step back, shaking her head. You're sending me away? His jaw clenched. To save you. Her voice broke. You already ruined me, Dawson. Don't pretend this is mercy. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, the man was gone. Only the king remained. Go, he said. Before I forget why I'm letting you. And though her heart screamed otherwise, Ariel obeyed. Chapter 7, The Exile's Moon. By dawn, Ariel was gone from the palace. The king's riders took her past the outer walls under cover of fog, no one speaking, no one daring to meet her eyes. The world beyond the moonstone gates was a wasteland of frost and stone. She didn't look back until the towers disappeared behind her. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. Lori had slipped her a cloak and a pouch of herbs before the guards came for her. Run north, she'd whispered, tears in her eyes. Find the Riverlands. Wolves don't hunt that far. But even as Ariel rode through the frozen pass, she knew the lie in that comfort. Wolves always hunted the scent they couldn't forget. By midday, they stopped at the border where the royal lands ended and wilderness began. The commander, an older beta with gray hair and guilt written across his face, handed her a leather satchel. "His Majesty ordered this for you," he said. Inside, coin, dried food, and the silver ring. The one that had started everything. Ariel stared at it, hollow. "He means for me to live, then?" The soldier's jaw tightened. "To vanish." He didn't look back as he turned his horse and rode away. When the sound of hooves faded, Ariel sank into the snow, clutching the ring until her fingers went numb. The cold bit through her cloak, through her bones, through everything except the memory of his voice. "You'll disappear before dawn. And I'll forget you by morning," she finished bitterly in her head. But she knew he wouldn't. The bond wasn't physical, yet it lived beneath her skin. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt his wolf pacing in her thoughts, a pulse of heat that refused to die. By the second night, she found shelter in an abandoned hunting lodge. The scent of old ash clung to the hearth. She lit a fire, unwrapped the satchel again, and laid the ring on the table. It glowed faintly. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. "No, you didn't." But the air shifted, a ripple like a heartbeat through the room. Then came the voice, faint, carried on the crackle of flame. "Ariel." She froze. "Dawson?" The fire flared brighter, the flames forming vague shapes, shoulders, a jawline, eyes like molten gold. "I told you to run," the voice said. Tears stung her eyes. "You said to disappear. I thought distance would protect you." "It doesn't." The image flickered, strained. "Snake's not gone. He's rallied the court against me. They call for blood. The council claims you bewitched the Alpha King, that you're a witch, not an Omega." Ariel's breath hitched. "Then tell them the truth." "I did," he said. "And it only made them hungrier." The flames snapped violently. For a moment, his form solidified, pale, fierce, desperate. "They're hunting you, Ariel. If they find you before I do." The fire guttered. She leaned forward. "Dawson." But the flames died, leaving her alone in the dark. The silence that followed was worse than fear. It was the sound of the world closing in. Ariel stared into the ashes. The ring still glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. She whispered into the empty air, "Then let them hunt." And when she stepped outside into the cold night, her eyes weren't just full of tears. They were full of fire. Chapter 8. The Huntress in Hiding. For weeks, Ariel moved like a ghost through the borderlands. She traded herbs for bread, silence for shelter. The gossip traveled faster than she did. An Omega accused of witchcraft. A curse on the king. A love that defied law. Every story twisted her into something less human, more myth. By the fourth moon, she'd stopped correcting anyone. Myths were harder to kill. She'd made her camp in an ancient ruin, stone walls long surrendered to moss, a roof half collapsed. At night, she slept beside the cold hearth, clutching the ring that would not stop glowing. During the day, she listened for pursuit. The council's hunters were still out there. She could smell them on the wind, wolf musk and silver oil. One evening, a shape appeared at the tree line, a hooded figure, limping. Ariel rose, knife ready, heart steady. The stranger stopped a few paces away and lowered his hood. "Snake," she said flatly. He looked worse than she remembered. His cheek was scarred, one eye ringed with a bruise. "You're hard to track, little Omega." Her blade didn't lower. "You've already done enough damage." He grinned, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Funny. That's what the king said when he found me." Her pulse jumped. "You saw him?" "Not recently," Snake said. "He's busy holding his throne together." The council's bleeding him dry. They whisper that you put a spell on his blood, that every night he calls your name in his sleep. Ariel's breath caught. He doesn't. Snake tilted his head. Doesn't he? Tell me then, why are you still wearing his mark? She looked down. The faint imprint of Dawson's crest glowed beneath her collarbone. It hadn't faded with distance. It pulsed sometimes, in rhythm with her heartbeat. Snake saw her silence and laughed softly. I was sent to bring you in, you know. Dead or alive. They think killing you breaks whatever curse binds him. Then why haven't you tried? His smirk faltered. Because I'm tired of serving wolves who eat their own. He stepped closer, slowly, his tone shifting. The council's about to declare open revolt. Dawson's losing control. But a lot of wolves still believe the goddess favors him, and by extension, you. If you went back, you could turn the tide. Ariel's jaw clenched. You think I want to go back to the palace that exiled me? I think you want him alive, Snake said quietly. The wind picked up, scattering leaves between them. The ring on her finger flared brighter, as if agreeing. She looked toward the horizon, where the peaks of the Moonstone Palace glowed faintly under starlight. If I return, she said slowly, it won't be as an Omega. Snake arched a brow. Then what? Ariel's eyes glinted. As the curse they created. That night, when the moon rose full and white, she lit the ring's glow against the sky. The light pulsed outward, silver ripples over the land. Somewhere far away, Dawson jolted awake, gasping, feeling her through the bond for the first time in months. And in that moment, the goddess smiled. The hunted Omega had stopped running. The rebellion had just found its queen. Chapter 9, The Moon and the Crown. The message of her light reached the capital before she did. By the time Ariel crossed the first frozen ridge overlooking the Moonstone Palace, fires burned in the lower city. The council's banners had been torn down, replaced with crude sigils scratched into the stone, half prayer, half rebellion. Everywhere she went, wolves whispered her name. The lost Omega. The king's witch. The goddess's shadow. Snake walked beside her through the outer gates, his blade drawn. You sure about this? No, Ariel said. But if I don't come back, Dawson dies as their monster instead of their king. The moon hung low and cold as they entered the courtyard. Dozens of soldiers stood between her and the throne room, their silver-tipped spears glinting under torchlight. Ariel lifted her hood, revealing her face. Gasps rippled through the ranks. It's her. The witch lives. She bears the mark, look. The glow beneath her skin was faint but steady, a thread of silver light pulsing from her throat down to her wrist. The wolves wavered. Some lowered their weapons. Others stepped back entirely. Snake smirked. Well, that's one way to skip the paperwork. Stay close, she murmured. Inside the great hall, the scene was chaos. The council lord stood in a semicircle before the throne, shouting accusations. Dawson sat motionless in the center, one hand clutching his temple, the other gripping the hilt of his sword. You've doomed us. Lord Varen roared. She bewitched you, twisted your mind. The goddess herself turned from us because of your weakness. She turned, Dawson said quietly, because of your greed. The doors burst open. Silence crashed through the chamber. Ariel stepped inside. Every gaze turned toward her. Some eyes widened in awe, others in hatred. Dawson's head snapped up, shock flickering across his face, then something raw. He rose slowly, as if afraid she might vanish again. Ariel. Majesty, she said, voice steady. You look worse than your portrait. That almost drew a laugh from him. Almost. Varen pointed a trembling finger. Seize her. End this blasphemy. No one moved. Ariel's eyes burned silver now, the ring on her finger flaring. The floor beneath her feet cracked, runes blooming in the stone like frost patterns. You wanted a witch, she said softly. Then listen to one. The torches dimmed. The air vibrated. Every wolf in the hall flinched as the scent of moonfire spread, ancient, divine, impossible to resist. The goddess's magic poured through her like a storm, searing and cold all at once. She lifted her hand. This bond was forged in blood, not witchcraft. The goddess saw us, and she chose us. You call that a curse? A ripple ran through the guards. Wolves fell to one knee, eyes reflecting her light. Varen shouted, she's lying. She'll enslave us. No, Dawson said, stepping down from the dais, his voice ringing out clear and low. She'll save us. He came to stand beside her, the Alpha King and the outcast Omega shoulder to shoulder. The bond between them flared, golden meeting silver, and the glow filled the hall. Varen stumbled back. This isn't power, it's heresy. Ariel's voice cut through the panic. It's evolution. The power surged once more, bursting outward. The council's banners ignited, consumed in pale fire that burned but did not destroy. The air shimmered with heat and cold at once. When the light faded, Dawson reached for her hand, eyes wide. You came back. I didn't come to kneel, she said, smiling faintly. I came to stand beside you. He closed his fingers around hers, reverent. Then the goddess help anyone who stands against us. From the courtyard outside came the rising sound of howls, not of fear this time, but of loyalty renewed. The moon above turned from red to white. And in that silver light, King and Omega stood united, no longer scandal, no longer secret. They were prophecy made flesh. Chapter 10, The Goddess's Reckoning. The scent of moonfire lingered for days, woven into the palace walls. The rebellion bent itself to quiet, stunned obedience. For the first time in memory, the Moonstone Kingdom felt less like a fortress and more like something alive. But power never fades without blood. The council wasn't finished. They slunk through corridors and whispered oaths in candlelight, too afraid to face their Alpha King in daylight. Fear makes cunning things of cowards. Ariel knew it was coming before the first blade was drawn. The goddess had given her no gift of peace, only warning. Every night she dreamed of the same thing, a shadow rising from beneath the throne, red eyes gleaming, her wolf snarling in the dark. On the seventh night, the prophecy arrived. The great bell tolled once, deep and hollow. Then came the screams. Dawson was already in motion, half-shifted, his claws tearing through the marble as he ran. Ariel followed, power sparking under her skin like lightning through bone. The scent hit them before the bodies did, iron and ash, the council's betrayal made flesh. Lord Varen stood in the ruined throne room, a jagged blade slick with blood. Around him, guards lay broken, throats opened by silver knives. You should have killed me when you had the chance, he spat. The goddess doesn't choose mongrels and whores. She chooses kings. Ariel stepped forward, eyes burning silver white. You speak of a goddess you've never met. Varen's grin was madness. And you think you have? Dawson moved, but Varen was faster than any old man had a right to be. He lunged, blade flashing. The steel sang. Ariel didn't think. She reached out, catching the weapon mid-swing. The impact sliced her palm open, but the pain didn't stop her. The blood that hit the floor shimmered like quicksilver. The mark on her wrist ignited, flooding the room with light. The air froze. From above, the ceiling split, not with stone, but with light. A column of moonfire poured down, washing over them. The goddess's presence filled the hall, vast and terrible. Every wolf dropped to their knees. Even Dawson lowered his head, though his hand still gripped his sword. Only Ariel stood. Her voice trembled, but she didn't bow. Why did you do this? The goddess's answer wasn't words but feeling, a rush of sorrow, fury, pride. Because mortals forget what they are until they're forced to remember. Ariel's tears mixed with blood. You made me a weapon. No. The light flared brighter. I made you a choice. The beam widened, enveloping her completely. Her wolf howled within her chest, a sound of birth and death all at once. The light burned through her skin, searing and sweet, leaving behind silver veins of power that pulsed with every heartbeat. When it faded, the blade in Varen's hand had turned to dust. His scream was brief, swallowed by wind. Silence. Ariel swayed, dizzy. Dawson caught her before she fell. Ariel. She looked up at him, eyes still glowing faintly. It's over. He cupped her face, thumb brushing her bloodied cheek. It's never over. But it's ours now. The surviving guards bowed low. No one dared speak. The light still shimmered faintly in the air, a living halo around her. Dawson turned toward them, his voice steady. Let it be known, this kingdom stands because of her. Because of the Omega you cast out. A murmur rose, reverent, fearful, awed. Ariel met his gaze, the edges of her lips lifting in a tired smile. And because of the Alpha who listened. The goddess's voice echoed faintly one last time, a whisper curling through their bond. The moon judges all, but she loves those who defy her best. Outside, the storm broke. The moonlight poured clean and white through shattered glass. Ariel and Dawson stood beneath it, equal, entwined, unbowed. The kingdom's night had ended. Chapter 11, After the Storm. Morning in the Moonstone Kingdom had never felt so still. No more bells, no more howls of revolt, only the wind through broken windows and the faint scent of rain. The palace had survived, though scarred. The wolves who had knelt out of fear now walked the halls with something new in their eyes, belief. Ariel woke in the king's chambers for the first time, sunlight pooling across the furs. The wound on her palm had healed, leaving only a faint crescent scar. Her wolf stirred quietly beneath her skin, content for the first time since exile. Dawson sat near the balcony, bare-chested, a strip of bandage across one shoulder. The mark on his neck, the bond she'd branded without realizing, glowed faint gold. He turned when he felt her stir, the hard edge in his face softening instantly. You're supposed to be resting, she murmured. He smiled faintly. So are you. She rose, wrapping the sheet around herself, and crossed to him. Outside, the valley spread in rolling mist and pale green. The smell of new growth rode the wind. The goddess spared us, she said quietly. She didn't spare us, he corrected. She remade us. Ariel's fingers brushed his bandage. And what does a remade king do now? He looked out over the mist, eyes distant. He rebuilds. He gives back what was taken. And maybe, he finally learns how to rule without fear. She leaned against the balcony railing. That will terrify them more than anything. Good, he said, turning to her fully now. Let them be terrified of mercy. Their eyes met, and the quiet between them thickened into something heavy and sweet. The kind of silence that meant safety. The kind that had once been impossible. I almost lost you, Dawson said softly. Twice. You did lose me, she said, just as softly. You sent me away. He flinched, the truth landing hard. I thought it was the only way to keep you alive. And now? He reached for her hand, tracing the scar on her palm with his thumb. Now I think you were never meant to be saved. You were meant to save us. She didn't know how to answer that, so she kissed him instead. This one wasn't the desperate burn of the tower or the fevered clash of power, it was quiet, deep, real. The kind of kiss that builds rather than consumes. When they finally parted, she whispered, "What happens next?" Dawson's smile was small but sure. We start again. New laws. New council. No more collars for Omegas. No more thrones that demand blood. And if the goddess tests us again? He brushed his lips against her forehead. Then she'll find we've already learned how to defy her. Below, the courtyard filled slowly with movement. Wolves from every rank, alphas, betas, omegas, worked side by side clearing the wreckage. Lori supervised with her sleeves rolled up, barking orders at soldiers twice her size. Even Snake was there, hammering new hinges onto a door, muttering curses under his breath. Ariel smiled faintly. They're building. Dawson followed her gaze. Because they're free. A gust of wind swept through, catching her hair, scattering the scent of rain and pine. For the first time, she didn't flinch from the world waiting below. She wasn't the king's secret anymore. She wasn't the exile or the curse. She was the beginning. Ariel turned to Dawson, her voice steady, fierce, and calm. Then let's give them something worth following. He took her hand. Together? Always. And as the sun climbed higher over the mountain, the Moonstone Kingdom, reborn from ash and prophecy, breathed again. The wolves howled, not in fear or rebellion this time, but in unity. And under that chorus, two hearts, one Alpha, one Omega, beat in rhythm with the goddess's quiet laughter. The age of tyranny had ended. The age of love had begun. Chapter 12, The Oath of the New Moon, Epilogue. A year passed. Seasons turned like pages, and the kingdom followed. What had been the ruin of rebellion became something startlingly new, a home. The fields that once burned with war now bloomed with silverleaf and moonbloom. The wolves who had knelt in fear now laughed openly in the markets. The Moonstone Palace had shed its walls of ice and replaced them with open gates. Ariel stood in the courtyard where it had all begun, wearing no crown. She didn't need one. The mark at her throat glowed softly, the symbol of a bond no longer hidden or forbidden. Around her, the council, rebuilt with alphas and omegas alike, gathered beneath a sky washed pale by the newborn moon. Dawson joined her at the altar of carved obsidian, his cloak trailing behind him. The scars across his forearms gleamed faintly, marks of battles that now felt like another lifetime. When their eyes met, no words were necessary. The bond between them thrummed, a steady, unbreakable rhythm. Snake stood among the guards, cleaner and calmer than she'd ever seen him, though he still looked like a man ready to ruin anyone's day for sport. Lori was in the front row, grinning from ear to ear, tears glinting on her cheeks. Even the wolves of the shadow clans had come, their dark pelts gleaming under the moonlight. Ariel lifted her hands. Tonight, she said, her voice echoing through the courtyard, we lay to rest the world we inherited and rise into the one we've chosen. The crowd hushed, every ear turned to her. For centuries, she continued, we lived by fear, by rank, by blood, by the illusion that power must be taken, never shared. But the goddess showed us what happens when one Alpha and one Omega refuse to obey that rule. The world breaks, and then it heals. Dawson stepped forward beside her. His voice was quieter but carried further. This kingdom stands because of choice, not command. And tonight, under the new moon, we make that choice again. He drew a blade from his belt, not of war, but of ceremony, and cut his palm. The blood shimmered gold. Ariel did the same, hers shone silver. Together, they pressed their hands to the obsidian altar. Where their palms met, light erupted, white and blinding, the colors of both wolves merging. The magic spread like breath, rippling outward, touching every wolf in the courtyard. Their marks flared faintly in response, different, individual, yet bound together. When the light faded, no one spoke. Then Lori began to clap. Then Snake, slow and sarcastic but sincere. And then, all at once, the entire court was howling, an eruption of sound that rolled through the mountains, past the rivers, through the dark forests that once knew only fear. Dawson turned to Ariel, smiling through the noise. You realize what we've done, don't you? She laughed softly. We've rewritten the kingdom. Not just the kingdom. He brushed his thumb over her mark. The meaning of what we are. She leaned into him, her voice barely a whisper. Then let's never forget it. They kissed as the new moon broke through the clouds, light spilling over them both. The bond between Alpha and Omega, once forbidden, now sacred, blazed bright for the world to see. Above, the goddess watched. And for the first time in centuries, she did not intervene. She simply smiled. In the valley below, wolves lifted their heads and howled as one, an anthem not of conquest, but of freedom. The kingdom of Moonstone had a new legend now. And it began not with a war or a crown, but with a forbidden night that refused to be forgotten. The end. Thanks for listening and supporting me and my little paranormal stories.